Before beauty ruled hearts, before desire shaped human destiny, there was Aphrodite. She did not enter the world like other gods. She was not born in a palace, nor raised among thunder and power. According to one of the oldest Greek traditions, Aphrodite emerged from the sea itself. When Uranus, one of the oldest titans, was overthrown by his son Cronus, his severed essence fell into the ocean. From the white foam that gathered around it, a goddess began to form. This goddess was Aphrodite. Hesiod, writing in the Theogony, describes her rising from the waves, carried gently toward the shores of Cyprus. Her first steps, according to this version, were on the land near Paphos, where one of her oldest sanctuaries later stood. This is why her name is often linked to the Greek word for foam, aphros. Aphrodite stepped onto land already fully grown, already radiant, already powerful. The sea breeze surrounded her. Flowers bloomed beneath her feet. Even the gods, it was said, felt desire awaken the moment she appeared. This origin defined her forever. She was called Kypris, the Cyprian, and Paphia, Lady of Paphos. These were not poetic inventions. They reflected real worship. Across Cyprus, archaeologists have uncovered sanctuaries dedicated to Aphrodite dating back centuries. Offerings included perfume vessels, mirrors, and delicate jewelry, symbols of beauty and desire. But her power was not limited to physical attraction. To the Greeks, Aphrodite governed something deeper, the invisible force that draws beings together, that creates alliances, that sparks rivalry, that alters destinies. Love for them was not gentle, it was unpredictable, it was overwhelming, it could unite or destroy. And Aphrodite stood at its center. Some Greek thinkers later distinguished between two aspects of Aphrodite. Aphrodite Urania, the heavenly Aphrodite, represented spiritual attraction, the bond between souls. Aphrodite Pandemos, Aphrodite of all people, governed physical desire, the force that draws bodies together. This distinction, later discussed by philosophers, shows how the Greeks understood love as both elevated and earthly, both inspiring and dangerous. Later in the Homeric works, Aphrodite was described as the daughter of Zeus and the Titaness Dian. This version placed her within the Olympian family, makes her younger, and emphasizes her role among the gods. These two versions of Aphrodite's birth were both accepted by ancient Greeks. They saw her both as a cosmic force of attraction and an integrated Olympian goddess. Aphrodite's power did not rely on weapons. She ruled through desire. Even the gods were not immune. Ancient poets describe how Aphrodite could influence hearts simply by appearing. Her presence altered emotions, softened anger, and awakened longing. She carried symbols that reflected this influence. The dove, gentle and devoted. The swan, graceful and serene. The rose, beauty paired with fragility. But her most powerful object was invisible, the force of attraction itself. In some traditions, she possessed a magical girdle, a sash that heightened desire in anyone who saw her. When she wore it, even the most disciplined gods struggled to resist. Stories tell that she could persuade, manipulate, and redirect fate. She did not dominate like Zeus. She did not strategize like Athena. She did not hunt like Artemis. Instead, she influenced the motivations behind actions. Wars began because of love. Alliances formed because of desire. Rivalries intensified because of jealousy. Aphrodite did not command events directly. She shaped the emotions that led to them. This made her power subtle, but profound. To the Greeks, love was not weakness. It was a force that moved the world, and Aphrodite embodied it completely. Even Zeus, ruler of Olympus, was not immune. In the Homeric hymn to Aphrodite, Aphrodite is said to influence even the king of the gods, making Zeus fall in love with mortals. This reminds the Greeks that desire operates beyond hierarchy. No authority, no wisdom, no strength existed outside her reach. Despite embodying beauty and desire, Aphrodite's own marriage was not born of love. Her marriage was arranged to Hephaestus, the skilled smith of the gods. Ancient sources suggest that many gods desired Aphrodite. Her beauty risked creating rivalry among them, especially between powerful male gods. Worried, Zeus gave Aphrodite to Hephaestus, and balance was maintained, at least in theory. Hephaestus was respected but not politically threatening. Giving Aphrodite to him avoided competition and preserved balance among the Olympians. Hephaestus was respected for his craftsmanship. He forged weapons, armor, and intricate works of art. But he was also portrayed as solitary, focused on creation rather than romance. He was often depicted as a bearded craftsman with powerful arms, but a lame leg, a god defined not by beauty, but by skill. The contrast between them was striking. Aphrodite represented beauty, attraction, and emotional power. Hephaestus represented labor, skill, and endurance. Their marriage reflected tension between these worlds: attraction versus structure, passion versus duty, beauty versus skill. In the Odyssey, Book 8, Homer describes Aphrodite forming a relationship with Ares. Unlike her husband, Ares embodied passion and intensity. This connection symbolized something deeper: love and conflict intertwined. Ancient storytellers did not portray Aphrodite simply as unfaithful. Instead, they explored how desire operates beyond social structure. Love could not always be contained within formal arrangements. Emotion moved freely, just as Aphrodite herself did. Her marriage therefore highlighted a paradox: the goddess of love, bound in a union without it. Hephaestus eventually caught the lovers in a net and exposed them for the male gods to see. The gods laughed, and Poseidon eventually persuaded him to release the lovers. Ares fled. Aphrodite returned to Cyprus. However, the force of desire remained unchanged, and the affair essentially continued in later myths. One of the most famous myths involving Aphrodite explains how love could change the fate of nations. It began with a dispute among three goddesses: Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite. Each claimed to be the most beautiful. The decision as to which could claim that title was given to Paris, a mortal prince of Troy. Each goddess offered him a gift. Hera promised power, rule over kingdoms. Athena promised wisdom and victory in battle. Aphrodite offered something different. She promised him the most beautiful woman in the world. Paris chose Aphrodite. The woman that Aphrodite gave Paris was Helen, but Helen was already married. When Paris took her to Troy, it triggered a conflict that would become famously known as the Trojan War. This story shows Aphrodite's influence in its most dramatic form. She did not start the war directly. She did not raise armies. Yet her promise altered history. Love, desire, and attraction set events in motion that no one could stop. To the Greeks, this demonstrated a powerful truth: beauty could reshape destiny. Aphrodite's influence extended beyond gods and kings. She also formed bonds with mortals. One of the most poignant myths tells of her love for Adonis. Adonis was renowned for his extraordinary beauty. Even the gods noticed him. However, the myth of Aphrodite and Adonis changes slightly over time. Around the 6th or 7th BCE, Sappho mentioned women and Aphrodite mourning Adonis and a ritual lament. Plato then mentions the Adonis gardens in Phaedrus. He describes quick-growing plants that die rapidly. These earliest mentions of Adonis already tie the name to fragile beauty and a short life. Later, Theocritus, the Hellenistic Greek poet, gives an emotionally literary count. Aphrodite loves Adonis and mourns him deeply. However, Adonis's cause of death is not mentioned. It is not until later retellings do more details come. In the Lament for Adonis and Ovid's Metamorphoses, Aphrodite becomes deeply attached to Adonis and warns him to avoid dangerous hunts. But Adonis was drawn to the wilderness. During a hunt, he is fatally wounded by a wild boar. Aphrodite mourned him profoundly. From his spilled blood, it was said, a flower grew, the anemone. This symbolized beauty that fades quickly, love that is intense yet fragile. The myth reflects Aphrodite's deeper dimension. She was not only the force of attraction, she also embodied vulnerability. Love could bring joy, but it could also bring loss. To the ancient Greeks, Aphrodite represented more than romance. She embodied beauty as a force. Beauty could persuade, it could soften conflict, it could influence decisions, but it could also create jealousy, rivalry, and imbalance. Ancient stories often show Aphrodite intervening when beauty is ignored or disrespected. In one myth, she punishes Hippolytus for refusing to honor her. In the earliest surviving version of the myth from Euripides, Hippolytus devoted himself entirely to Artemis, rejecting love and sexuality. As punishment, Aphrodite caused his stepmother, Phaedra, to fall in love with him, leading to tragedy. Phaedra feels shame, tries to resist the desire, does not want to dishonor her husband Theseus, but eventually her nurse tells Hippolytus. Hippolytus reacts strongly and rejects Phaedra. Phaedra hangs herself and leaves a letter accusing Hippolytus of assault. She lies to protect her honor. Her husband Theseus believes the letter and asked Poseidon to punish his son. Poseidon sends a sea monster from the ocean, and Hippolytus's horses panic. His chariot crashes, and he is dragged and fatally wounded. It is said that Artemis appears and reveals the truth. She blames Aphrodite, and Theseus realizes his mistake. Another tale involves Pygmalion, a sculptor who fell in love with his own statue. The story of Pygmalion is one of the most fascinating myths connected to Aphrodite because it shows love as creative and transformative. Ovid describes Pygmalion as a sculptor from Cyprus who rejected real women because he believed they were flawed. He carved a statue of a woman made from ivory, perfectly beautiful, and over time he fell in love with his own creation. He treated the statue like a living person. He dressed it, kissed it, and spoke to it. During a festival to Aphrodite, he prayed quietly. He asked for a wife like his statue. Aphrodite brought the statue to life, and later accounts name her Galatea. This myth highlighted Aphrodite's power to animate beauty itself, to transform admiration into reality. Through these stories, the Greeks expressed a complex idea. Beauty was not superficial, it was transformative. It shaped behavior, it influenced emotion, it altered destiny. Aphrodite stood at the center of this invisible power, the attraction that moves both gods and mortals. Aphrodite's presence was recognized through a set of sacred symbols. Each reflected a different aspect of her nature. The dove represented devotion and gentle affection. Doves were often shown accompanying her in art and poetry. The swan symbolized grace and beauty in motion, a quiet elegance associated with love. The rose became linked to Aphrodite as a sign of beauty paired with fragility. It bloomed brilliantly, yet faded quickly. The myrtle plant was also sacred to her. In ancient rituals, myrtle branches were used in ceremonies connected to love and marriage. Shell imagery traced back to her birth from the sea. The scallop shell became one of her most recognizable symbols. Unlike warlike gods, her imagery remained soft. yet deeply influential. Aphrodite was worshipped in many forms across the ancient Mediterranean. Her character changed depending on region and tradition. On the island of Cyprus, she was closely tied to fertility and the sea. Sanctuaries near Paphos became major pilgrimage sites. Worshippers traveled long distances to honor her. In Cythera, she was associated with maritime journeys and the power of the ocean. This reflected her origin from sea foam. In Corinth, Aphrodite took on a more civic role. Her temple stood prominently overlooking the city. Here she was connected not only to beauty, but also to social and communal life. These variations show that Aphrodite was not a single, fixed figure. She adapted to local needs and beliefs, yet one idea remained constant. She governed attraction between individuals, between communities, between humans and the divine. To the ancient Greeks, Aphrodite was more than a goddess. She represented a fundamental force of existence. Attraction brings beings together. Without it, there would be no union, no growth, no continuation of life. But attraction is also unpredictable. It can inspire or disrupt. This dual nature defined Aphrodite. She could create harmony or spark conflict. She could unite or divide. Ancient thinkers understood that beauty itself holds power. It draws attention. It influences decisions. It changes behavior. Aphrodite embodied this invisible influence. To the Greeks, this made her essential to balance. Strength alone could not sustain the world. Neither could logic. Life required attraction, the force that binds everything together, and Aphrodite stood at its center. She was beauty, she was desire, she was the quiet power that moves hearts and shapes destiny. If you enjoyed uncovering the deeper story of Aphrodite, the force behind desire, beauty, and the fragile balance of love, don't forget to subscribe for more Ancient Untold Stories. Because in the ancient world, love was never simple. It shaped gods, moved mortals, and changed fate itself.